Hi guys, so welcome back to another video. Today I'm gonna give you my long-term review of the Sony ZV-E1. I've had this camera now for over 2 years in fact, but I'm not gonna go into, all the specs and all that. I'm rather gonna focus on how this camera has been for me, why I bought it, all the pros, all the cons, is there any temptations out there, am I going to upgrade? So we're gonna cover all of that. Alright, so the first talking point I have is why did I buy this camera? Long story short, I was looking for a full frame camera. I knew I was leaning into video, and I also knew that I wanted full frame. What it really came down to was this camera and the FX3 and the A7S III, which you probably have heard of these cameras, and they are pretty similar because they all share the same sensor. And what it came down to, and the reason I chose this camera, was I could get it for half the price with the same capabilities as those other cameras. There are some things that you lose out on as well when you do that, like dual card slots, full-sized HDMI, no viewfinder like the A7S III has, no internal fan like the FX3, and some external recordings. There's some stuff that you miss out on, but my point here is that I realized in the end that all of those things are things I didn't really need. So now when I bought this camera and I'm thinking back on that decision, I'm very happy I did that, because that was 100% the right decision for me to make. And the main reason I bought this camera was because I started my YouTube channel. I was really set on going into content creation, and I really wanted to explore shooting more B-roll in terms of, challenging myself creatively. Alright, so next talking point I have is how I've used it and what I have used it for. Well, I have used this camera for a lot of stuff. And the one thing that a lot of people say about this camera is that it's not a professional camera. You will hear that a lot. It's just not true, If you have a camera, you can create professional work. Doesn't matter. But there are some areas that this camera is limited. And the one thing it is limited for is long-form content. And that is because of the overheating. This camera is a very small camera, and it has a very small compact body, which is a big pro by itself. But there is a trade-off with that, because it also comes with a lot of punch. It has a lot of power. So because of that small body and compact size, it does struggle with overheating in some certain situations. And that has mainly to do with long-form content. So when it comes to documentaries, weddings, stuff like that, it's not really ideal. But is it capable of producing professional work? Absolutely, 100%. In fact, I think this is the perfect commercial camera for commercial work. So mainly what I've been using the ZV-E1 for is shooting B-roll and taking thumbnails from my YouTube channel and commercial work, promo videos. Alright, so let's move over to the things I love about it and the things I hate about it. The things I absolutely love about this camera is the 4K 120, full slow motion. There is no camera out there that even comes close to this camera when it comes to 4K 120 in the price range. Just do a quick Google search for whatever brand, Nikon, Canon, Panasonic, whatever. See if you can find a 4K 120 camera at this price range. There is none. And it has literally been like this for over 2 years now. So if I had to nail it down, what I love most about this camera is first and foremost the small body, the compact small body. Secondly, it is the 4K 120 and the 4K 60 without a crop. And also the fourth one is going to be the dynamic active stabilization. So you can get super steady footage with this camera. I almost forgot, but one of the best things about this camera is also the low light performance. The second native ISO on this camera is 12,800. So if you have a good lens on top of that can open up all the way to f1.8 or f1.4, it's actually insane how dark of an environment you can shoot in. And this is just how I see it. This is what the biggest pros are for me. This camera has a lot more pros to it, of course, but this, the 4K 120, the low light capabilities, and the superb autofocus as well. I think I need to mention that as well. Well, it has so much things, good things going for it. It's kind of hard to pick one out. But if I had to pick one out, it would be the 4K 120, I think. Now for the cons, one of the cons is, as I mentioned earlier, it will overheat eventually and it will shut down if you are shooting long form content. That is true. And another con, not really for me, but I could see this is a con for a lot of people, is that it's not really a photography camera, This is a video camera first and foremost. But can it take photos? Of course, 100%. I take all my YouTube thumbnails with this camera. So if it's for social media and you're not seeing yourself cropping in post or printing any large prints, it's going to suit you perfectly fine. But the one thing that has been really bothering me, and the one biggest con of this camera, this is a con that I have experienced, I have to base it on my own experience. Sony has labeled this camera as a vlogging camera. This is a vlogging camera. That is what you will hear people say, especially people that don't know cameras. They think, oh wow, he's shooting with a vlogging camera, you know. And there has been, as I said, multiple times where I've talked to people in the industry, you know, asking me what camera I shoot with, and I say the ZV-E1, and they simply don't take you seriously, even though this camera is fully capable of professional work. And when I'm talking about professional work in the industry, you know, people in the industry, they see the A7 IV, for example, as a professional camera. So that is what I'm comparing it to, really. And when it comes to professional work in terms of shooting B-roll, commercial work, you know, promotional videos for social media, for restaurants, I will grab the Sony ZV-E1 100 out of 100 times over the A7 IV. And that is the truth. Now, you know, I get overheated when I start talking about this. But I just want to quickly mention also that if you're looking into getting this camera, I advise you to get a cage. It will feel like it's more professional, it feels a little bit bigger, and you can rig it out a little bit more, and you will be taking a little more seriously. Unfortunately, that is how people's brains are. Alright, so what is next? Any upgrades or temptations? Good questions, right? Do I see myself upgrading? Ooh. Eventually, of course. But right now, not really. There is one camera recently that has been tempting, and that is the Panasonic S1 II. First of all, I just want to try and shoot with Panasonic. That's one thing. I've never really shot with a high-end Panasonic camera like that before. I really want to test it out. That is one thing. The second thing is the IBIS. Because I am a solo creator, I'm a run and gun shooter, shooting a lot of handheld stuff. That is something I highly value. Not that the IBIS is bad on this, but you know, the Panasonic IBIS is industry leading, it is the best in the business. And the last thing is open gate, because I am leaning more and more into anamorphic. I've always had an interest for anamorphic shooting, and right now Sony doesn't really offer that. They don't really offer open gate, not yet, and I really wish they did. That is something Sony is lagging behind on. But Sony has the better autofocus still, and for the capabilities at this price range, Sony is still unbeaten. As I said, there's nothing out there right now that can shoot 4K 120. Even the new Panasonic S1 II, it has a 1.24 times crop on the 4K 120, and this only has a 1.10 times crop. I am 99% sure that that global shutter we see now in the A9 III, they will bring that global shutter down into the FX3 Mark II. But what I'm not sure is going to happen is if they will do the same thing again with the ZV-E1 Mark II, because this camera has some big shoes to fill now, because they made this camera so good. So I'm very curious if they're going to do the same, take all the features in the FX3 Mark II when that's coming, and put all of that into a smaller body like the ZV-E1 Mark II. That is the moment I think I will upgrade, and that is the truth. And I've shot with the A7C II, I've shot with the FX3, the FX6, the FX5, the A7 IV, the A7 III. I've shot with most of the Sony cameras out there, and I wouldn't trade any of those cameras for this camera, except the FX3. And that is only because it's more expensive, and I would have gotten more money for it when I sold it. So final thoughts, who is it for? Do I regret buying it? Absolutely do not regret buying it. This camera is for me, but is it for you? So if you can resonate with anything I said today, so are you mainly a video shooter? Do you like shooting slow motion? If you like shooting B-roll, do you shoot only short form content? And if you are a vlogger, this will be the best vlogging camera you can possibly get because of that dynamic active stabilization. So if you are any of those things, yes, you should 100% get this camera. I would assume this camera is cheaper now on the used market as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope I see you guys in my next video, so don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button before you leave. Take care, shoot safe.